Okay, so last bit. Hopefully, this looks like it gives us a little bit more information, supposedly what, like, they're going to prevent with some of the issues that I've brought up in the way that they explain these implementations. Whether how well it protects against it really is yet to be seen, because remember, attackers are still, they're playing a game of cat and mouse again. So, how will we prevent the signal from being used to exclude vendors? Providing a signal that is unique to the attester would be hazardous if websites decided to only support attesters where certain signals are available. If websites know exactly what browser is running, some may deny service to web browsers that they disfavor for any reason. Both of these go against the principles we aspire for the open web. Again, I brought this up. You said that there's no criteria for becoming an attestation server or an attester. So yes, they get to decide what criteria they're going to use to reject whatever device that they are attesting to. So if you have an iPhone or some other Apple device, and you're using a web browser that is not approved by Apple, they can say, no, they are rejected because they're using this different web browser rather than our own. Attesters will be required to offer their service under the same conditions to any browser who wishes to use it and meets certain baseline requirements. What are those baseline requirements? This leads to any browser running on the given OS platform having the same access to the technology, but we still have the risk that 1, some websites might exclude some operating systems, and 2, if the platform identity of the application that requests the attestation is included, some websites might exclude some browsers. Okay, this is what I talked about. If there's certain things that don't quite meet their criteria, they're going to reject it in the attestation. So what are your baseline requirements? And then the requirements of them as well. So how do you enforce those baseline requirements? Because we've seen multiple times where people have had, quote, baseline requirements under licenses and things, and they still violate those licenses. So you've got to be able to ensure and enforce those baseline requirements and that they stick within the criteria for an open web. How are you enforcing that? And if you are the standard and you are not enforcing that yourself and you are rejecting things based on certain criteria you don't like, then you are just as guilty as the rest. You say open web, but you still do these things that in your other properties like YouTube that deny the open web. Hold back. To protect against both risks, we are evaluating whether attestation signals must sometimes be held back for a meaningful number of requests over a significant amount of time. In other words, a small percentage of client-site pairs platforms would simulate clients that do not support this capability. Such a holdback would encourage web developers to use these signals for aggregate analysis and opportunistic reduction of friction, as opposed to a quasi-allow list. A holdback would effectively prevent the attestation from being used for gating feature access in real time, because otherwise the website risks users in the holdback population being rejected. We kind of see some of this already. If you have an ad blocker, we reject you from seeing our website. We've got the technology already. People are already doing these things, and you're saying you're trying to prevent that. I think even on your own services, you've got the same thing going on. Although a holdback would prevent the attestation signal from being used for per-request enforcement decisions, there remains immense value for measurement in aggregate populations. However, a holdback also has significant drawbacks. Here we go. In our use cases and capabilities survey, we have identified a number of critical use cases for deterministic platform integrity attestation. These use cases currently rely on client fingerprinting. A deterministic but limited entropy attestation would obviate the need for invasive fingerprinting here, and has the potential to usher in more privacy-positive practices in the long term. Okay, wait, just a second. Deterministic but limited entropy attestation would obviate the need for invasive fingerprinting here, and has potential to usher in more privacy-positive practices. What's privacy-positive mean? Are you saying that users will like switch to being more privacy focused? Because that's what more and more users are doing already because of Google's invasive like tracking already in many ways. So I like earlier on they said, "Oh, we're not trying to do invasive fingerprinting," but here they are saying like using like invasive fingerprinting, the term. It's like we're not going to do this. We're going to use low entropy attestation values in order to say whether to trust or not. That's it. But then invasive fingerprinting, who's doing the fingerprinting? And then limited entropy. We don't see low entropy, we see limited. Well, limited could mean like mid-size entropy or anything. And how much is low entropy really? We asked for feedback from the community group on the idea of holdback and are very interested in alternative suggestions that would allow both goals to be met. So they say they asked the community, but Brody, in one of his videos, noted that the community that they went to only had like 2 or 3 people talking about it in a discussion board. It didn't get opened up to the community, like the public at large, until months later. A tester-level acceptable browser policy. If the community thinks it's important for the attestation to include the platform identity of the application and is more concerned about excluding certain browsers than excluding certain OS attesters, we could standardize the set of signals that browsers will receive from attesters. And have one of those signals be whether the attester recommends the browser for sites to trust based on a well-defined acceptance criteria. So again, this comes to we're limiting the platform. We said we didn't want to do that earlier, but here we are like, oh yeah, but you can still do it. So they basically back up and like say, yeah, but here you can do it anyway. We say we're not going to do it, but later on it's like, we'll do it. As the new browsers are introduced, they would need to demonstrate to attesters, a relatively small group, that they pass the bar. But they wouldn't need to convince all the websites in the world. Established browsers would need to only use attesters that respond quickly and fairly to new browsers' requests to be trusted. So again, this is the web server certificate and certificate authority verification process, except they're turning it around to the device that's accessing a web service and a separate server that says whether you can trust the device. Now, whether you get that trust once or like you would have to verify that trust every so often. How frequently that trust is re-verified is a whole other issue. But then again, it becomes a web browser. They just said here, like, you could limit the web browser and the OS and the attesters that like can be accessed. So a web server developer can go, I don't want anybody that has been attested by these attesters to access my service. And they could do that. That's what they're saying here. And I don't want these people on these certain OSs to access my service. And they're saying they can do that here. I don't want these people in this browser to access my service. And they're admitting they can do that here. All on the web server end based on web server attestation. And supposedly all the attesting server is supposed to do is say whether they can trust the device that is connecting or not. So either the attester is passing that information onto the web server, or the attester is talking to the web server and asks for the criteria and then says, no, don't trust the server according to your criteria, which are both bad. Like, though they're still privacy invasive on some level, because someone has to have that information to decide whether to let it on. And we've already got user agent strings that give like web browser, the version number, the OS and kernel and things like that. So, and yeah, those can be spoofed. So what's to say that these attesters can't be spoofed in the end still? What have we changed here, really? How are web views different? Web views are embedded into native apps which have direct access to attestation APIs that expose more information than we'd be willing to provide on the web. These are more invasive, in other words. In other words, they have your device type and they will send it to the attester, and it will be privacy invasive. In spite of them saying, what's the word up here? Privacy positive? I don't know what privacy positive means, but that's interesting. These apps can expose direct access to those APIs, so it makes sense to relax some of the restrictions we propose for the web APIs above. In particular, the WebView API doesn't have the same concerns regarding vendor lock-in. The WebView API can expose information about the embedder's application under certain conditions. So they're, again, opening another way for people to exploit their system. We relax the stuff because you're using a web view inside of a native application, and the native application has already verified everything. Wait, just a second here. Wait, we do verify things, don't we? We've got YubiKeys and the like to verify that we're a trusted user. Isn't that what we're doing in the end, is trying to verify trusted users? Something's wrong here. Stakeholder feedback opposition. Implementers and other stakeholders may already have publicly stated positions on this work. We will list them here with links to evidence as appropriate. Implementer A, positive. Stakeholder B, no signals. Implementer C, negative. When appropriate, we will explain the reasons given by other implementers for their concerns. So they've got a lot of videos on YouTube. Where's, like, the links here? Hello, guys. Anyway, they said a lot of things in the beginning that sound really nice. They're like, oh, it's going to be privacy and things like this, that, and the other. We're here to maintain integrity. We're not going to track you or do things. We're not going to limit the web on you. But then you start reading through it, and at the end, they're like, yeah, so if people decide to limit the web on you, they can do that. It's basically like the UN's charter charter, whatever, statement of human rights. And then at the end they say, but if you go against the agenda of the UN, or you're against, like, you're interfering in the goals of the UN, then, or the mission of the UN, then all these rights don't matter. They're all null and void for you because you're going against us. That's basically what they've done here. They've laid out this whole thing of, like, rights that you have as a user and as a client on the server, and then because you haven't gone through the whole thing and read through the whole thing because you stopped early on, you didn't get the point to where, yeah, people can limit you according to whatever criteria, because they've filled you with all this jargon up front and haven't explained it really. They've basically set it up for corporate entities to sound nice, and that's who it's geared toward. And then the end user is left to be like, okay, cool, whatever. Even though at the end they halfway make it to the message it to the user. It feels like that they know the user's going to give up by now on reading or skip to the end here. And I think a lot of people that have been commenting on it have skipped to the end here and looked at the open questions, which does make sense. But so we can go back to here. And we can look at the issues, and we can see the vibrant stuff going on. So, anyway, if you want to go through the issues on it, then I guess I can do that. Let me know, or I'll have something in the first part of the video to, like, yeah. Anyway, hopefully this was a good discussion piece and helped, like, lay some things out for those that may not be as aware somewhat. I mean, at some of the things I may have flubbed up on the wording and things, but I've been through a lot of security courses in the last, like, 4 months, so, like, everything's jumbled in my head. So some things may have come out weird and things like that, or slightly inaccurate. So you crucify the messenger, not the message he was trying to like convey, I guess. If you enjoyed the video, then like, comment, subscribe, feed the algorithm, boost the video up, share this video with your friends. If you found it informative or you just want to chat, I've got plenty of places in the description, Discord, Guilded, and what have you. Check those out, and I will see you guys in the next one.